So hello, I'm Dr. Reed, your new superintendent, and I'm thrilled to be here to meet with you as a student panel representative of Student Voice today here in Fairfax County Public Schools. So I want to thank you for joining me today, and so grateful for your time and energy.
So my name is Taylor, and I am representing WLTS from Londontown Elementary School.
Thank you.
Welcome.
My name is Maisa Islam. I'm from Luther Jackson, and I'm in grade 8.
Okay, thank you. Ethan?
My name is Ethan. I'm in 4th grade. I'm representing Churchill Road Elementary School. And yeah.
Thanks, Ethan. Nice to have you with us.
My name is Ariana. I'm from Hughes Middle School, and I'm in 8th grade.
Thanks, Ariana.
My name is Alina Go. I'm a senior from McLean High School. I'm an editor-in-chief for McLean's news magazine, The Highlander.
Great, thank you. So who would like to start?
You can go ahead.
Sure. Okay, first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I just want to get started off with my first question, which is, what do you see as the main issues for high school students, and what are some initiatives that you will take to address them in your first few months as superintendent?
So thanks, Alina, right? So Alina, I think one of the keys is to make sure that if you're a high school student at any of the high schools in Fairfax County Public Schools, you would have the same access to similar courses, science, math, the arts, right? And have what I would call equitable opportunities to take courses regardless of the high school you're in. So that's one of the first things I'm going to look at is what are the courses available in the pyramid that each student travels in Fairfax County Public Schools, and make sure that there are pathways for the types of courses students want in each pyramid. So that's a piece that's really important to me. I also wonder if our high school students, kind of where that student voice and agency is for high school students. And it'll be important for me to meet with groups of high school students to hear what you think is important, because I'm here to serve you, right? It's not the other way around. Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet. Ariana?
Yes, I'll go. As a middle schooler at Langston Hughes Middle School, I noticed that many students were starting to pursue certain subjects and figuring out what they want to do in life. So what will you as the new superintendent do to help middle schoolers and FCPS choose a path for their future?
That is a great question, isn't it, Ariana? Do you know, this is like my favorite data point, that 65% of students in K-12 education right now across the country are preparing for a career that does not exist today?
Wow.
Right?
Whoa.
So when I think about that, I've been meeting with students and asking, so what do you think? What are the skills you're going to need to be successful in that world? Because if we can't conceive of what that career is going to look like, you know, how do you know what math to take, or how do you know which science is most interesting? I always share with students, Ariana, that I think you have to do what you love, and you know what breathes life into you. So I think the ability at middle school, especially, to try a number of different courses is a great opportunity, because there are probably some content areas. I know there's science or engineering, which I particularly enjoy, and math. I just love numbers and the engineering side. That doesn't mean I don't love poetry and music, right? But I think middle school should be a time for exploration and trying. It's one of those opportunities. Sometimes students take a welding class, or a class that they didn't know anything about, and all of a sudden that becomes a passion. So, and I do think it might be also wise. So I guess middle school, just exploring as many options as possible, and I also would like to make activities as much no-cut as possible. I know that's a big risk middle school students take sometimes to turn out for something, a sport or a play or a musical or a music ensemble, right? And it's hard when you don't make the team so we have to find ways to keep everybody engaged, regardless of their immediate skill set, because they can grow into it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet, Ariana. Ethan, do you have a question?
Can you tell me your most fun experience working with elementary school students?
My most fun experience was working with elementary school. Well, this morning, I was at Garfield Elementary School with the Eagles, and there was an energizing dance moment. I wasn't properly dressed for it, but it was a lot of fun, I think. So there was joy there, Ethan. I also know I recently was with a group of, I think it was 4th grade girls who were calculating the volume of an acorn squash. And I think that sounded really fun. Actually, it was pretty interesting to think about different squashes in a 3D model. We don't have time this afternoon, but it was a lot of fun. So, yeah, Maisa?
Our school, Luther Jackson, is a really diverse community, and we were wondering, in terms of equity, how would you help the elementary schools that would be coming into our pyramid in terms of money, really?
In terms of money?
Yeah.
So I would expect that each of our elementary schools have the proper resources to meet the needs of each and every student at that school. And I think that that's really a basic, right, a floor. So we would want to look at the data at that elementary school, like what are the needs that the students and the staff, the educators and the families have, and then how do we best support those needs. But I think that we would generally, different schools may require different supports for different reasons, right? Different financial resources. So I would want to look at each individual school as its own unique school. In the system I come from, we do something called needs-based resource allocation. So we allocate budget based on the need of the school or the program or department.
Thank
Do you have a follow-up on that, or?
Are there any other ways you would want to support these endeavors?
I think one of the things we don't think about as a resource often enough is time. And so I would look maybe at different schools how we spend our time together. And maybe in some schools we want to spend a little more time on mathematics or reading or writing or language. And some schools a little less, right? Or within a school we may have groups of students that need to spend more time or less time. So I think I would also not just think of finance, but how do we use our time? Yeah, and maybe some schools need more adults too, right? More educators. So I think too often we think just about money, and people, what is the phrase? It's time, talent, and treasure, right? Time, money, and people. So yeah, hope that helps. Do you have any ideas? I'm not supposed to be interviewing you probably, but I'd be curious to know.
Well, I recently did sort of talk over courses and electives and how that kind of helps with career pathways.
Yeah.
I think our school itself has a really incredible STEAM program, and that kind of helps my experience when it comes to courses. And I think supporting those programs are really important.
Yeah, I agree. I think when we think about education, I think about the difference, Maisa, between knowledge and understanding. And so much of what we do in school is about knowledge, right? Memorizing our facts, capitals of states, right? A lot of knowledge. And understanding is taking knowledge and applying it in a new situation independently. And that's when we know we've learned something. So I think the electives you're talking about, career and technical classes, tend to allow us to demonstrate our understanding in ways we don't sometimes in our core content classes. So I really like the idea of projects, and I'm looking forward to learning more about that. I actually have some high school students in my current district writing a course for an upper level math course around music. And all the rhythms and the time and so forth, which I'm really excited to see what they come up with. But then that means they understand, right, the concepts and can apply them. So, yeah, thanks. Taylor?
My question is, what is your biggest goal for elementary school?
Biggest goal for elementary school. My biggest goal is that each and every student, number one, is seen, heard, and affirmed and begins to develop their student voice and agency. The most important life you'll ever lead is your own, right? And so making sure that everyone feels, by the time they leave elementary school, confident, capable, curious. And that would be my goal for elementary students. I also really like personalizing things a little more. So if, we go to a library and you get to pick books that are at your reading level, I would like math to look the same way. So you could be at any level of math. Doesn't matter what grade you're in. So those are some things I'm going to be curious about in Fairfax.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I think one more each, guys. So,
Okay.
Yeah, so one of the concerns raised among FCPS high school students is the comparison of FCPS to North Shore District in terms of population and diversity. So considering this, how do you plan to ensure that all student voices and concerns are both recognized and addressed effectively?
So in North Shore, I actually have a student board. We created several years ago, just like there's an adult board here with a student member. We have a student board that's representative of all of our high schools, and we meet monthly to bring the concerns to me directly that are out in the high schools. And currently that student board is also developing a student summit agenda. We hold one day in June where probably about 150 students, middle and high school, come to the district, and with an agenda that's designed by the student board, right? What are the top issues in secondary schools in our district? And they come and they problem solve, debate, and so forth. And each year, at the end of that, they each also write me a personal letter. I attend that as their guest. And we really have implemented some of the initiatives brought forward from the Student Summit and with the student board. So that's one way. I tend to visit schools a lot. And love to pop in and visit with students. So I think it's very important to hear your hopes and dreams. Again, I'm here to serve you, right? If there weren't students, there wouldn't need to be a superintendent, right? So yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. I can't wait to see you in your learning habitats, right? Ariana?
So FCPS is, actually, as you know, FCPS is a large school district with many schools. So what do you plan on doing to increase communication in between schools and build a sense of community in FCPS?
Yeah, that's a great question, isn't it? And it's a large district in a medium-sized state, right? In a very large country, and really part of a ever-evolving world. Right? And if we're going to be successful even as a planet, I think we need to come together. My aspirations aren't to bring the world together necessarily, but within our house in Fairfax County, it's important that we come together, because if we can marshal all our resources and our ideas, remember, it's not just money, it's all of our ideas and our best thinking, it will be amazing. And I think we have to remember we have more in common than we have different. Right? And that if we stay student-centered and listen to your hopes and dreams, I think we're going to be just fine. Improving communication, our students have had some great ideas. They've created different apps for our students and apps for the families and so forth. So I'd be curious to hear your ideas on how we could improve that. Because sometimes we think we're doing a fabulous job, and then the people we're communicating to are like, I never heard anything about that, right? So social media can be also harmful. It's not always helpful. So I'd love to hear your ideas.
Thank
and
you.
Yeah, it's not a one and done meeting today. So I'm sure my email is public once I get here. So I'd love to hear more from you.
Thank
each of
you.
you. Yeah. Ethan?
You kind of answered this, but my second question is, can you let us know your number one priority for elementary schools after you take on the position? And what would you like to say to elementary schools students today?
So I think I did answer the first one. Taylor asked that. And what would I like to say to elementary students? You're our future, Ethan. We're counting on you to be the most incredible thinkers and problem solvers and compassionate adults. We need you. My generation has not gotten it right. So we need you. Yeah. Thanks, Ethan. Misa?
Thank you.
In terms of diversity, how would you also support this sort of idea? because it's a huge thing in our county.
It is, and there are so many ways to talk about diversity, right? Diversity of thought, diversity with ableism and gender, race, culture, religion, right? There's so many ways. I think diversity is such a strength. I think the more divergent the ideas we bring to the table, the better solutions we have to common problems. And I think that diversity in so many ways, we're better problem solvers, better collaborators, better critical thinkers. I think where it gets difficult, Maisa, is that when topics get hard, or when things feel really personal, and when we stop talking to each other about hard things, I think that's when we get into trouble. So for me, I will want to keep talking and keep staying in conversation, because I know learning happens best in community. Yeah.
How would you keep it civil in terms of keeping the conversation? How would you keep it more?
How do I keep it more civil?
Yeah.
You know, I think because you as students are hearing it, aren't you, and you're seeing it. And I would say that not all of the adults are showing up as their best selves sometimes, right? So number one, I would model what I consider to be grace, right? Patience, compassion, and openness to new ideas. And I would not just hope for, but expect that and those in my presence. And as long as I'm here, that's going to be a standard that's very important to me. We are going to choose to stay in the light in Fairfax County Public Schools, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Taylor?
So my question is, what is your biggest advice for all students?
Stay curious a little longer. Don't lose that sense of wonder. I think sometimes we jump to solutions so quickly that we create bigger problems, if that makes sense. Yeah. How many of you, any of you play basketball or soccer? Okay. So, Maisa, if you play basketball or soccer, I think of good leaders, right? Are in position for the first pass. Great leaders are in position for the second pass, right? So when I think about that, the most important thing you can do is learn to lead your own lives, and don't ever try to lead someone else's, right? There's a lot of pressure sometimes to do that and to not be who you are. So yeah, you're fine, perfect, just the way you are, brilliant, right? Anyhow, I want to thank you for joining me. I am so excited to be here, so thanks for the warm welcome.